Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to some more Dota 2 action. I'm Lyrical Dota, joined today by Danny Lee Cast as well as Corrupt Drop Bear on the strat. Sorry about the little bit of a delay. We did end up having a couple of problems as we tried to load on into this game. We are currently casting from Dota TV, so that is why we're having this bit of a delay. And we had to get everybody on into the cast and make sure everything was working lovely. Also, there won't be any in-game stats this time around, as Corrupt Drop Bear is actually the way that we're able to watch this one, so he's going to be feeding me stats that I'll be talking about and pontificating about throughout the whole course of it. So hope you guys enjoy the cast as we end up going forward. Danny, how you doing? You excited for this game too?
I'm excited, a little bit sad that we came into this a little bit late. Actually, if Corrupt Drop Bear is still technically in the game, he can throw stats in the game, but they'll pop out later,
Got
right?
it.
So
Yeah.
he still technically does stats.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I'm excited for it regardless. We did end up seeing a lot of different picks this time around, as the Tusk is still going to be picked up there for a different side this time around. Slardar, Winter Wyvern, and the Lich, Gyrocopter, Bounty Hunter, Sven, and the Shadow Fiend. To me, at least, the main heroes that end up standing out, one is the Shadow Fiend, obviously very popular all across pretty much every region, but we haven't seen him as much in the Southeast Asia region. Also, the Sven as a way to counter the minus armor that you've got going. To me, I like both of these picks here.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with this Sven pickup as well. And as you said, he counterbalances all this negative armor coming out from Kingdom. My main issue with Sven, technically, now, Sven as a hero, his one major weakness is he's similar to a Ursa to a small extent, where he has a lot of kiting issues. And his team has to be there to help him catch on to his target so that he can actually hit his targets. Lich is okay, but Lich isn't really the best catching hero. He gives you negative armor, he gives you a slow, he gives you a very nice ult. Bounty Hunter helps in the movement speed department. So to a small extent, I would say that was a soft way to help the Sven when it comes to chasing. Tusk is there with the snowball. Viper, in the meantime, the last pick, doesn't synergize too well with the Sven, but he is a relatively tanky hero. Is Execration hoping to out-tank Kingdom with their draft? This is what I'm actually looking at with their current hero pool.
Well, and it's certainly a question that needs to be asked. And I think that they have the possibility to. It's going to depend a lot upon itemization, who's going to be able to tank up a little bit more effectively. And with the Tide Hunter, the king of tank, we'll see how this ends up going. This is going to be a good one. I haven't seen too many Tide Hunter games recently. I'm really excited about this. I think that probably the Bounty Hunter is going to be a huge component of being able to win the next couple of, or will win throughout the whole course of the game, the team fights, because he needs to keep vision on that Tide and make sure that he's able to sort of interrupt him whenever he wants to go on in for that blink ravage. And maybe we ended up seeing something as unusual as an urn on this hero in the later stages, so that way you can, toss on out that charge, break through the blink dagger, and make sure that that doesn't end up coming out. We'll see where they end up going, but pretty excited for this game as it looks to be a good one.
I love seeing the watermelon, but we all know the prevalent weakness of the Tide Hunter. His ultimate is on such a long cooldown, it is ridiculous. And in this game, I can see Tide Hunter working, but I can also see the hero failing miserably to a certain extent. And let's explain why. So the reason why I actually think this is because they're going up against Execration, who has drafted a lot of heroes with really short cooldown ultimates. So you can expect Execration to just continuously fight after fight after fight, whereas for Kingdom, the Tide Hunter's not going to be strong up until he has the ultimate, and once he's used that, that's his strongest point gone. So the watermelon can work out, but they have to make sure that they can use these ultimates at wise timings, and that they can actually benefit off the fact that they use the Ravage. So maybe if they can team wipe Execration with the Ravage, then they push it out onto an objective. They take towers, they take Roshan, they push up high ground. So
Yeah.
they can make the watermelon work, it's just they need to make the ultimate count when they use it.
Absolutely, and that's going to be the key point in these games, is how good are the initiations going to be by both squads. Now, the other thing that you end up occasionally seeing on the side of Extrication on the Sven is a Blink Dagger, and I think that they don't have the best of initiation at this point. That might need to be the thing that they look for on this hero, is to be that initiator as well as just jumping on in there and being able to right-click fools down, because while you can initiate with Tusk, this could end up being a bit of a problem here. They do spot out the Bounty Hunter, but he's going to be able to walk away, at least for the moment. A second sentry committed at this point. He's going to be continued to slow down. They do have another couple of sentries if they want to continue to chase, but look at all the sentries that have been dropped, and he's just going to be able to walk away from that one. I'm almost wondering if this one blocks off the camp off here near the medium one.
it wouldn't just be the blocks, but you also have to consider how much gold is that? That is 300 gold, and you don't even get the hero. So that is a massive loss for Kingdom to not only not get a bounty kill, no first blood, but they also have a lot of their sentries down the drain, and they even take the rune. No, they don't. They actually went to the Shadow Fiend. So Kingdom still get the rune, but the cost of those sentries, it is immense. I guess
Absolutely.
the best thing is maybe if they look through their jungle, they might find the bounty.
Yeah, so a little bit too bad there for Kingdom, as you ended up saying. They are on the ropes at this point. Also, it's worth noting that you do have. If they basically lose this game, they're going to be out of the tournament. So you really don't want to end up dropping one like that, and it's definitely not the way that you want to start it. Shadow Fiend does have now those raises at level 2. It's going to be able to last hit somewhat effectively here, and it is a bit of a problem. In terms of the build for the Viper in this matchup, I think that there's always the sort of desire to end up stacking on up a lot of the corrosive skins. That way you deal almost as much damage to the Shadow Fiend as you take. But Viper is a hero that doesn't have the greatest escape mechanism and isn't the tankiest in the world at the early stages. So depending upon how this goes, he could be in a little bit of trouble. But also worth noting that with the Bounty Hunter there, you could be in a little bit of trouble in return.
Yeah, so here we go. Looks like the initiation is going to be there. And now Shank is going to be there with the slow. And unfortunately, is going to go down. First blood for Execration. A beautiful execution of that small gank for Execration. And for Kingdom, they really didn't have enough to react. I have no idea what they were talking about before. And I'm assuming you do because you're laughing.
Well, Tidehunter's just sort of taunting them right now, and I think that that's pretty much what they're laughing, is that he's sort of running up to the Lich and continuing to right-click him occasionally, as well as tossing out those anchor smashes while getting the last hit. So that seems to be what's been going on down there in the bottom lane. Is we do have... It's worth noting, Tidehunter is not an easy hero to kill. Like, he is very, very difficult, particularly when you end up getting those boots first. You're just so quick relative to where the supports are at, and there isn't a great ability to sort of shut him down in this. I mean, basically just the Lich sitting there is going to be the most that they can hope for, and honestly, if he needs to, he can honestly just back on out over to the Ancients and stack them up for taking him later on.
Kind of like a bristleback to a certain extent. He's just so big, so tanky, and you can't really shut him down. So for Crash Bandicoot, this is good news for Kingdom, because you want that early level 6 on the Tide, and once you can get that Ravage up, then that's when your power curve peaks, essentially, once it's off cooldown. And it looks like they are going to spot out, or they know went through here as a Sentry Ward from beforehand. Is not going to pay off, but at least they had some sort of vision of the bounty. But there's no courier coming out, though, so no chance of a courier snipe. They could see a potential wraparound, though, and will reveal himself. Was going to think about going for a hit, but that's under a tower.
There's a lot of very intricate things going on with the laning here. I mean, you've got the Lich that's wrapping around the other side in the bottom lane, able to get a couple of quick hits off on the Tidehunter. He has to back on out, and then he's forced to not be able to contest the farm anymore of the Sven. Meanwhile, the side pulls coming out from the Tusk, trying to keep the lane as much into his favor as he possibly can. It was actually a side pull over on the side of Kingdom, and now BYB is going to be able to take the last hit on the Hellbear Smasher. Doesn't get the solo experience from it, but is at least going to be able to get something. And now he's level 4 in the offlane, as Lich does finally get a kill off on the Tidehunter as the pause comes out. Okay.
We've got two excuses. Well, two reasons. So you have one that has to go to the toilet and one that has a mouse problem.
And apparently somebody's dog is on fire. They ate their homework. It's just all going bad. That's the side of Kingdom right now. But regardless, Bounty Hunter does end up getting the Anchor Smash applied to him, trying to reduce down the damage. But just a bit too much burst there from the side of Execration. And obviously the Lich is just going to be able to spam on out the Frost Blast continuously because he's got the sacrifice there to keep his mana pool up. It's such a difficult hero to lane against. And I mean, he is just one of those lane dominating heroes. It's always going to be pressed, or the creep wave is always going to be pressed up against the tier 1 tower, and it's a bit of a tougher lane for the Tidehunter, particularly when you have the Bounty Hunter roam in.
Oh man, so this is gonna be where Fruits has to be there to keep the Shadow Fiend alive. Just make sure that he doesn't get jumped on by the Bounty Hunter, and even though they lose the Tidehunter in that bottom lane, it's not really that bad of a position, because we haven't seen Tidehunter that much. But the advantage of a Tide is that he is in some regards similar to a Bristleback, where he's going to be able to farm up the Ancients. So he can just sit in the Ancients, stack them up, and once he's got those points into Anchor Smash, he can actually finish those off. So if Tide doesn't have the best laning phase, it is not the end of the world for him. He's going to be able to come back. But as long as he doesn't die too many times, it should be okay. If he dies too many times, then there's situations where you don't want to be a Tidehunter.
Absolutely. So it looks like the bounty hunter here is going to be able to slow him down fruits, chase him away from this one, and that's going to secure the illusion rune off to the side, and maybe just going to be able to get away from these creeps here. Doesn't want to end up getting taken out. Fruit's going to run away from here. This bounty hunter is actually incredibly happy right now. If you take a look at, he's been able to get level 3, so is going to be able to have 2 points in that Shadow Walk, moving around very, very quickly, and also can get a good amount of damage down. Fruits might end up going down here. Does also have the boots and the Orb of Venom, so he's really just going to be able to be that constant presence around the map, creating trouble, and he's going to run back in. This could actually be a bit of a mistake. If they end up finding him out, Slither and Crush can come out? No, not going to be able to make it happen. But he's also going to be able to take the stacks from the Shadow Fiend, or not take them, but at least soak up the experience and get closer to that level 6.
And he might be here to block off this stack that Fruits is going to be aiming for, as they are still hanging around here with the creep wave. Although, gonna back up. He's a little bit worried, it seems. Just constantly scared that there could be detection. But he will go under the cover of Invis and... Nope, not gonna cover. Okay, he's not gonna block it, it seems.
Yeah. But it didn't end up stacking regardless.
That's interesting. I thought that would have stacked. I guess it's just the case of weird creep boxes.
Oh, and this is really too bad for the bounty hunter. He would have loved to be able to get this experience, but unfortunately the Shadow Fiend being pretty good about keeping his distance, and looks like they're going to be able to at least soak up a little bit of it as the Tusk Illusion does come in. But this is sort of just that game to be able to get a little bit more out of your side, and is getting closer and closer to that level 4, but not really super significant, and ends up sort of wasting a bit of his time, but he also wastes the time of the Sardar and the Winter Wyvern.
Yeah, is being a complete nuisance this game. And the ice! Oh, the shards actually securing the kill for Fruits. Oh my goodness.
What is this
rotation
game?
by BYB. I know, this rotation from the bounty. He himself is just being a complete and utter pest to Kingdom. And they're going to try and go for a counter kill onto Tusk, who is not an easy target. He is pretty tanky, but they will get a couple of raises off, and I think this is going to be the end of the Tusk. Although RR in the meantime want to try and jump onto the Honky, but there comes Shanks on that Viper. Going to go for the Viper strike. They should be able to kill him off, and BYB still survives. And Yomi Kompaku going to try and chase after his target, but that's going to be the end of him as Ponyo comes in and finishes off the rest of them, as Yomi actually survives because of the winters, because of the cold embrace. I have no idea what's happening. Well, I think the world is ending.
Pretty much. So we see 1,000 gold swing into the favor of Kingdom as Execration dive behind almost tier 3 towers to secure those kills, with the mid lane Viper moving all the way up there to the ward spot. This is just ridiculous play right now. They are going to be able to come on over here and spot out the very large ancient stack that Tidehunter's coming, but this is kind of the best that you could hope at this point for Kingdom. The big problem that you do end up having is, one, Tusk was able to hit level 6 relatively quickly, and you compare that to the enemy offlaner in terms of the Tidehunter, he's only at level 4. So the experience wars haven't really been there for him, although they are probably going to be able to catch up pretty quickly. The other big problem that you end up having in this lineup is that Viper, while he does end up going down, still has the top of the net worth chart in terms of all the farm that he's been able to get.
Oh man, there's a snowball. They want to try and jump straight onto the Slardar, who is actually not going to go down, and they won't be able to catch him. So BYB, not quite enough, and Yomi actually going to be able to finish off the Tusk. And in the meantime, Ponyo taking a lot of damage from Shanks, and he'll be healed up by the Wyvern. And here comes reinforcements. They're going to even bring in the Slardar again, who has a Crush available, who might die in the process. Going to die to the tower. It seems they get the kill. Do they want to jump onto Lumic? A little too risky as it was under the tower, but the commitment for Kingdom is real. It was 5 heroes in the mid lane to get a kill on a Viper and a Tusk. It was a free lane for the bounty in the top lane, surprisingly enough, who's almost at level 6, 8 minutes into the game. This is a very early level 6 if RR gets it very soon. Yeah,
and Sven now going for the max and cleave. I don't think that he's going to be able to get here in time to take out the ancient stack or have the damage to quite do it, but if that is a big point of contention, as we do end up seeing Ponyo get jumped on, Walrus punch down, as well as the Shuriken toss coming out. Bounty Hunter is going to be able to get out of here. They top one out the Dusk. It looks like Bounty Hunter is going to fall, and they also kill off the Tusk. The Gyrocopter there gets away on 50 HP. Oh my goodness, this is absolute ridiculousness. And it's worth noting that earlier in the fight, Corrupt Dropper ended up tossing out the stats that the Tusk ended up escaping on 12 HP. So across the board, these have been really, really close quarters in terms of the sort of team fights and heroes making their way on absolutely nothing.
Oh my goodness, this is I love games like this. It's just a complete and utter slugfest, and there's just action all over the map and a lot of things that you don't normally expect to happening. So it's great for us, for the viewers, as well as the casters. Nando's so close to what might be the Blink Dagger, as you suggested, and I would not be against that item pickup, as it will help Nando when it comes to actually getting into his target. I think the thing with Nando is that when he has this blink, he's going to be relying completely on the god strength for physical damage until he gets a item to give him a little bit more damage. So for Nando, he can be aggressive.
Yeah. No, definitely.
Or not even go for a blink.
Oh, all right. He got the Mask of Death. So with this Morbid Mask, the other way that he could have gone is we do end up seeing the Bounty Hunter die up in the top lane. They're going to give the last hit to the Shadow Fiend, who gets away on 135 HP. The other way that you end up getting away from this one is that now he's going to go into much more of a farming build instead. They turn back around. Stormhammer has been committed. Nano dropping pretty low. Gyrocopter is going to connect onto him. And now, like, the fact that they're going to be able to take this and probably take out the rest of the enemy jungle if they wanted to, instead they're going to wrap around onto mid lane. I thought they were going to try and take the jungle. It would have been really devastating because the vision is pretty important, but the bigger thing is the economy. Is Shanks is going to end up falling here. Ponyo ends up coming over. The Chain Frost is going to be relatively decent, but not ridiculous. Cold Embrace last second, keeping him alive against that Bounty Hunter. And 5 heroes yet again in the mid lane for Kingdom. I just wish that they would go on in there and take out the very important economy, because if they don't take it soon, Sven can come on in with God Strength and take it out, and then you suddenly give away the lead that you were able to build.
I think they're going to have to take their own stack first, the Ancient Camp. But in the meantime, they're looking for blood, and they want BYB. So here we go, Yomu, not going to bother, and it was going to be blocked off by shards anyway. So their Ancient Camp is ready for taking, unless they want to stack it up a little bit more, or if they want to give it to the Tide. I'm not too sure what the reasoning is behind this. Crash Bandicoot is sitting on a nice pile of gold, actually. 1.2k gold. Arcane Boots as well. If he finishes up this stack, he'll be very close to his Blink Dagger. I think he'll be sitting on maybe 1.8, maybe even close to 2k gold if he clears this.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that would definitely be a solid option for him, just to go on in there, finish it off. There's all these stacks on both sides, and I can't help but feel that the team that clears them first is just going to be off to such a big advantage. Bounty Hunter is now going to walk on in here and spout all these out. The other thing that's kind of interesting is that the Mask of Madness first for the Sven, as we get another little stat on in there, 50% win rate, but 6-1 on the stats before the 10-minute mark, and that's what he was able to get on. His Winter Wyvern is going to end up falling here. Fruit's just barely getting away. Is it going to happen? They end up bringing on over the Gyrocopter, who does have the call down if he wants to commit it, but the shards are going to be enough to finish him off. As we end up seeing another kill now. Shadow Fiend, this big ball of doom, is running amok in the Ancients area. It looks like this is going to be a kill on top of the Tusk, as the Rocket Barrage has been committed, and Ponyo gets that kill. Nicely done.
2-for-1 trade essentially, and for Execration, not the best trade. Whether it be track or no track, you are still giving kills to a Shadow Fiend, and Lee Honky is getting very, very close to his mechanism, as he has got the buckler. He's got 800 gold as well. He just needs a recipe outside of the headdress, which he'll be purchasing up shortly, unless he wants to just hang on to all the gold and maybe even just keep this for extra armor. Who knows? Ancients have been taken though, so Crash Bandicoot has his Blink Dagger. Is this going to be the time to fight Ponyo in the meantime, trying to fight up against Nando, but the Cold Embrace is there to keep him alive, and the Ravage committed. And Nando, the knight has been slain.
That is so frustrating. He wanted to come on in there and make it happen, but not able to do it. 45 HP is what the Tidehunter ends up walking away on, and now looks like Shadow Fiend's just going to walk his way out of here. So all of the stacks end up getting taken there. They are going to toss out another track on top of Fruits, a pretty big gold swing. We're going to have to actually look at the team net worth difference here in a couple of minutes, as we do end up seeing another jump forward onto Fruits. Gets pushed up onto the high ground now. Walrus Punch on top of him, but it's not going to be any damage. All that physical is going to be able to be there. That's a kill from the Viper. Nicely done there. Ponyo's starting to drop a little bit low. Requiem of Souls has been committed. The Gyrocopter ends up falling. It looks like it might come at the cost of the Viper, though, as he does go down. So far at this point in time, 2-for-1 is going to be the trade, but the stack has already been taken. And it's just such a big trade-off here. Do you try and go for the continued fight, or do you try and go for the economy game? And it looks, at least at this point, like Kingdom have kind of gotten the best of both worlds.
For Execration, there's one thing that I'm kind of wondering at this point, but in the meantime, they had Yomu Kompaku just completely melting as they throw everything at the fish, and now Crash Bandicoot was going to be the target, but they get the Winter's Curse onto Lumic first. The damage will be spread though, and they're going to try and change target. There's no Ravage, so they can go balls deep if they really want to, but it looks like they're not going to try and commit too far in, as the Shadow Fiend is just TP'd in. and it looks like they will be able to repel Execration. The one thing I'm wondering right now is that Nando has decided to go for 4 points into Great Cleave, and that's more or less an indicator of a farming Sven, a Sven that wants to be clearing as many stacks as possible. But Nando is playing an aggressive sort of Sven. What are your thoughts on him maxing this out? I would have expected him to only put maybe 2 points into the Cleave and then maybe more points into the Stormhammer.
Yeah, I totally would have expected the same thing. I think probably part of what it is he's wanting to sort of sustain up in the team fights and be able to just sort of hit away. And the fact that everything has been so close quarters, I think the cleave has somewhat been justified because he's still doing a lot of damage. It's worth noting, as he actually takes a lot from these ancients also, and needs to be careful. He's going to go down to it. A little bit unfortunate there is we do end up seeing God's strength taken away from him there. They need somebody else to be able to tank that up a little bit. And now without the Sven, that's actually a huge deal. They need to back on out now. Slardar ends up getting there with the blink. He has a blink now. Is going to be able to take on out Shanks pretty soon, I think. Shadow Fiend is tracked up, so they're getting the bonus movement speed from that, and it doesn't look like they're quite going to be able to find their kill, as the Urn Charge has been committed on the Slardar to be able to break away the Blink Dagger potential from him, and it looks like they're going to be able to do a little bit more damage. Gush committed onto the Lich and just going to back on out now. Cold Embrace on the Tide, or excuse me, the Slardar, the other fish in this game, and they're just going to back on out.
Unless they want to continue on committing though. I'm seeing heroes just blink all over the place, trying to get into position, but I think at this point it's just a vision game. Heroes wanting to throw tracks, heroes wanting to throw amplify damage. No one's going to commit unless Kingdom decides to, and they're going to go right in. They want to kill off Shanks. Lumic is here. Ravage committed, only connects under one, but they should get the kill under the Viper's actually healing up. Can they catch him out? They have to commit a Winter's Curse to get this kill. They should get Shanks here, and they do finally pick him off. For the rest of Execration, they leave. They don't want to commit. There are too many heroes here. They don't want to lose anyone else.
Oh, that's so frustrating that they ended up doing that. Gyrocopter, meanwhile, able to pick off the Tusk. Where was he at? He moved down to the bottom lane, so they're able to get him as he was pushing on in their bottom. So really well played. Kingdom has been looking very strong this game. It seems like they have a clearly identified project in mind. Like, basically what it's been is just run at him, and that's all that we've seen this game. It's, what is it, 25 kills at 15 minutes in? Incredibly high action and high action, and I think that this does sort of favor that side, considering you've got this carry and Gyrocopter that can fight really early, whereas you've got the Sven who needs a couple more items before he can really come online, and that really has sort of shown itself in the fights that we've been seeing.
And not just that though, but the thing is that even though they drafted a Tide Hunter, they're not completely reliant on the Ravage. So Ravage is more or less just a spell that adds on top of their current draft. They've got a lot of low cooldown spells that are going to be useful, but Ravage is essentially an added bonus. And even he's going to, well, swim to the fountain, I suppose, is he's just going to, what's this called? His taunt animation is called...
Backstroke or something? Yeah.
Backstroke. Well, I love them. I love the taunt. Anyways, Tide Hunter though in the meantime. I just love the fact that they're not relying on the Ravage. He's still being useful, even when the Ravage is off cooldown. They're negative armor from the Gush, and in the meantime, in the mid lane, Ponlo just gets completely whacked to hell as the rest of his team just kind of backing out. They let the Gyro die, and that was it. I don't think they would have been able to save him regardless.
No, definitely not. The amount of burst damage that comes out there is just too severe. Nice blink away. They're not going to be able to find that kill. Thankfully, they get out of there. It does look like they're going to chase now after this Shadow Fiend, who is still in the area, but the amplified damage on top of BYB, they need to be a little bit careful. The other thing is that you often end up picking up the Sven to get the more points in Warcry to deal with the minus armor. He only has 2 in it right now, and it is a decent amount that you get, 10 bonus armor. I would love to see that go a little bit higher, because when you end up having the amplified damage as well as the presence of the Dark Lord up on these heroes, you're hovering down around 0 or negative armor depending on where you're at. Sonic Wave, excuse me, the Stormhammer committed. They're going to be able to keep him alive with the Snowball, though. The turnaround really exceptionally well done. It does look like the Requiem Soul is going to come out, not really hitting onto too many heroes, though. Ravage has now been committed, and that's what they've needed to start really starting to go to town on him. Shanks is going to end up being able to go down. One last hit there from the Shadow Fiend is going to finish him off, and 4 heroes dead. Mega kill streak on the Shadow Fiend. They're chasing after this Bounty Hunter, but I think it's actually just so that way they can go on into Roshan. Might have overstayed his welcome slightly, as the buyback by the Slardar was enough to make it happen. So 1,800 gold swing, as well as right around 2,400 experience.
I just think the Sven wasn't prepared for the damage output coming out from Kingdom, but I guess it's also because you have a Massive Madness. You have to take into consideration you're taking 30% extra damage. And Sven right now, he doesn't really have too much strength outside of just the bracer and power tread, so he has to really watch his positioning. You can try and jump on your targets, which is it's great and everything, but you're not tanky. You won't survive everything. And they don't have anything like a dazzle to back up the Sven if he does get bursted down. Maybe they can rely on the Tusk to get him with the snowball, but he doesn't have a blink. So you can't reliably wait for BYB to save you with a snowball.
Like, it's just, given the rate of this game and how much action there's been, 31 kills at under 20 minutes into the game, it's absolutely ridiculous. And they need to have some more sustain here. They need the mechanism up on, a hero that's going to be constantly in the fights. I feel like that's been one of the big problems, as we do end up seeing a jump forward onto the Shadow Fiend in the top lane. Nice save by the Slaughter. That's going to be able to keep him alive, at least for a little bit. And the Cold Embrace is going to be able to keep him alive after the fact as well. Nando dropping low. Meanwhile, down here in the lower jungle, Gyrocopter is going to get picked off. The Smed goes down for him, but that's just going to be the Aegis committed now. And now also chasing on after the Bounty Hunter. I don't think that they find this kill, but they do end up catching on out the Lich yet again. He's going to go down. 2 more quick kills, and I think the Bounty Hunter survives the Rocket Blast regardless. But they need to have a little bit more... Like, Viper isn't able to keep up with them. He either needs to get a Blink Dagger, or they needed to have built the Bounty Hunter a mechanism. Regardless, they just... I don't think that they have the sustain that they need, because they're not grouped together when they fight. You end up having the Bounty Hunter too far ahead, or the Sven blinking forward, and then everybody else is not there in time. We do end up catching here, again, an amplified damage on top of BYD. He does have a snowball, but doesn't end up mattering. He goes down to the one last hit from the Tidehunter.
I actually think the best hero to have the mechanism for Execration would have been the Tusk. Because the Tusk is always in the middle of the fight. He would have been in range of everybody. So for him to not have it, it's not bad that the Viper has it. But well, as you said, I would have preferred if maybe the Tusk has it. I guess Bounty Hunter's okay, but he doesn't want to be in the middle of the fight. That's the major thing with the Bounty. Gonna go for a cute Shuriken play as he just bounces it between everybody, but T2 is going to be taken down here for Kingdom. Execration, they can't really defend this. They have to wait for the rest of their team. They're still trying to farm up their items as well. And surprised that they put Shanks down here to farm rather than Nando, but he's going to TP into the top lane, it seems, whereas the rest of his team are just going to keep vision of them with the track, it seems. No one's going to try and commit for any kills, although Sven's just TP'd into the top lane, and look at the positioning of Kingdom.
Oh my god, yeah, they're thinking about it.
They know he's here.
It looks like Fruits is going to end up getting spouted out. They bounce on out of there. Arctic Burn forward. There's the Crush in the middle of the trees. What is happening in here? Party in the jungle. And they end up breaking on through all of them and move on out after the end of the day. Bounty Hunter ends up getting picked off there. So everything looking good for Kingdom. This might be the first series in all of the Southeast Asian games that we've seen that goes to 3 games if they continue up the pace. At this point, if you're Execration, what do you do in this situation? Do you try and group up and fight, or do you just try and keep on farming?
I think the major thing here for Execration is they need a BKB on Nando, because the perk of running a Sven is that he's not like those other typical hard carries. He's special where he doesn't need much to come online because most of the damage is from the God Strength. And what does a BKB give you? Magic Immunity as well as extra strength. So that's where Nando's gonna hit a pretty big power curve where once he has the BKB, he blinks in, pops the BKB Mask of Madnesses, and goes to town on Kingdom, because they've got almost nothing aside from the Winter's Curse to pierce through the magic immunity. So if Execration can draw attention away from Fruits, maybe even force out a premature Winter's Curse and then have him jump into the backside to finish off Kingdom, I think that would be a picture perfect scenario for Execration, but it would have to be, they have to have it in that order. They cannot afford to have the Winter's Curse happen at all.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely going to be the most important part in those fights, is making sure you don't end up getting him Winter's Curse. So, also worth noting, a bit of a strange play there. I think that Viper ended up stacking the camp one more time for Kingdom, which was a little bit strange. I think they were hoping to maybe have, Sven jump on in there and make it happen, but regardless, we see the jump away after the track by the Bounty Hunter, keeping an eye on everybody to make sure that they're able to not get initiated on. Slardar, who thought about it, ends up being able to force staff to the other side. Nicely done there by the Bounty Hunter, just creating that extra bit of separation, and now maybe an opportunity for another push here. Tracks continuing to fly. This is the way that you get back in the game. You keep eyes on the important heroes from the side of Kingdom. You would love to be able to get a track on top of the Tidehunter, and then after the fact, you go on in for the possibility of a kill, and then you get this huge influx of gold. Execration can certainly get back into this game. It's just going to come down to good positioning. Slardar ends up finding on out the Bounty Hunter. This is a bit of a problem. He wasn't able to force Staff away, and Shadow Fiend gets the kill with the raise, and now they're ready to go. DD'd up Shadow Fiend. He's going to be hitting for 300 a pop. You cannot fight against this.
Execration we're trying to stall. Nando is still farming for the BKB. 740 gold so far. They need to stall for the Sven. And that's all Execration has to do. They now have the high ground advantage if Kingdom does decide to go into the high ground. But it doesn't seem like that's going to be happening for Kingdom yet. I think that at this point, take objectives. After that, take the Roche and then attempt to go high ground. Although Kingdom's team fight on the high ground is actually pretty strong because they have the Tidehunter. The Ravage is going to be a key spell on a high ground push.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, having that Blink Dagger, all the better. You find your perfect moment, you just go for it. And it looks like, at least at this point, they're going to be settling for taking all the Tier 2 towers. Their net worth lead currently hovering about that 10k mark. Experience-wise, it's about the same. And so, oh god, they end up catching the Bounty Hunter again. He does have a Force Staff, but he's not going to be able to get out of here. The amplified damage and everything else just comes out, and he continues to get picked off. It just seems like he's maybe playing a little bit too far forward here for where he needs to, and now they're not in position to be able to defend their Tier 3 towers. They're just going to go high ground on him. The great high ground defense that they could have potentially had is going to be nothing here, and it looks like they potentially can just take this.
Oh, they're going to try and chase after these heroes, it seems, and Nando going to jump in straight away. BKB pop, but there's the Winter's Curse, and look at Kingdom, they're hesitating. Nando taking damage, but here comes the damage output. Now Lee Honky has to be very, very careful. He will be cold embraced by the team to keep himself alive, but look at Lee Honky. The Winter Wyvern may have baited his teammate in. Lee Honky finally dies. There's the Ravage. Was it a little bit too late? They only get 1 kill so far. They get 2, they get 3, they get 4. Buyback only onto 1 so far onto the Lich. They need to keep on chasing after Nando. He's isolated. He will go down with no defensive supports. Another buyback on the Tusk. Execration, they're down to 2 heroes in Kingdom. They're looking very strong. Yomi Kompatu will go down, crushing the ground actually. I think they're a little bit frustrated. Ponyo though, too tanky for Execration. He will get out safely unless he's going to try and man fight a Lich. And in the meantime, BYB, he wants revenge. Can he get the kill? He will finish him off. I think Kingdom's overextending. What is going on here? Now BYB wants to fight a Wyvern. I think a Tusk will beat this. Will beat Fruits without any issues, and he does get it. That was... Okay, this was supposed to be a really good fight for Kingdom. They hung around for a little bit too long. They actually could not push high ground, could not kill off the duo. That was an overextension, but there was buybacks forced out. But you look at gold change, and it was literally nil.
And they get the bigger experience lead out of Execration. That's the big thing. So kind of a win if they can hold out throughout the duration of the buybacks. That was such an overextension there for them. They totally could have backed out as soon as the buybacks ended up coming out. And even if they lose 1 or 2 heroes, they're still going to be in a great position. I totally thought that was going to be the end of the game after the Winter's Curse on top of this Sven. And now any type of change in these games, any type of trade is totally into the favor of the Radiant. They're going to be able to continue to build up their items. Sven now gets all the space to continue to farm. You've got Viper picking on up the Yasha. They have all of the room in their jungle to farm on out. I mean, Dusk has a Blink Dagger now. They're in a great position. I really think that fight might have actually ended up working out for them.
I really think the problem for Kingdom in that fight was Nando blinked in, popped his BKB and Mask of Madness. He got immediately Winter's Curse. I'm not too sure why Kingdom didn't decide to maybe even attempt to just jump completely onto Nando. There's no AoE on Execration that they have to be worried about. There's no Curse, there's no Ravage, there's no Crush, all the AoE is on Kingdom. But they hesitated, and I think that moment of hesitation really hurt them because it bought enough time for Execration to get into position and to jump onto the targets that they wanted to, and even though they died, they still bought time for everything. So all in all, it's just really good for Execration that they didn't lose a T3 tower in the process.
Yeah, definitely. It really, I think that's probably the biggest thing here is now you're no longer having that pressure all across the map by the, you know, the tier 3 tower going down and the racks as well. Gyrocopter is going to be picking on up a Butterfly pretty soon. This isn't the worst thing in the world for the Sven, believe it or not. I think that's one thing that's kind of nice about it is that you can still toss in out the cleave damage that comes out from the Sven. So that's relatively decent as long as he doesn't focus onto the Gyrocopter, and probably won't end up seeing that because the cleave is relatively long. Relatively large for the Sven in terms of what he's able to do, and maybe you end up instead focusing the Viper Strike onto the Gyrocopter, decrease the ability for him to really get where he wants to be in the fights. Another key item that's going to be coming up here is the Tidehunter. He's picking up the Refresher Orb, and we saw how much damage the Ravage was able to do in that last engagement. That was what was able to give them the first volley of being able to win the team fight. And now, I mean, you're still seeing Sven start to get these items that are so important for his ability to scale late, and might even be able to force some rotations back for this tier 2 tower. Is going to toss on out the Warcry, give him a little bit more armor, apply the pressure, and then actually just bounce out.
And Kingdom, the moment they see the TP out, they just back up and they're going to go straight into Roche. So they did what they needed to. Roche is now available. And Execration, they clear the creep wave. Do they suspect the Roche? Do they suspect it? Do they attempt to go into Roche? I don't think you really want to up against Tide.
It doesn't look like, at least at this point, they're going to be realizing it. It's so hard to really know in the middle of a team fight what is going to, or in the middle of a game, what's going to end up happening here. Also worth noting, the Frost Armor coming out from the Lich is going to start to become a pretty significant part of this game also. Like, the right clicks being slowed down that much more by the Shadow Fiend, if you're able to apply it onto all of your teammates, is really key. And actually, it looks like they might not be in a position... Well, they're going to end up TPing back in just a second or two. They need to TP back right now, so that way they're going to be able to get in position. But Lich actually doesn't have a TP, and
then
Viper
there's
does.
12 seconds.
Uh-oh.
There's 12 seconds on the Sven. This is a problem. They will get a tower though, but look down bottom. Is there a glyph? They have a glyph available. That might be enough to buy time for them.
It's relatively decent. They're still not in a great position to defend it, but I guess that now that they're back, if they ever overextending again, Ponyo is in a little bit of trouble. Shards end up connecting onto him. They also have the rocket flare that ends up going out. All right, there's the opportunity for the jump, but who do you jump onto? We also have the Tidehunter in the background with the Ravage ready to go at a moment's notice. He's dropping really low. The Aegis is going to end up expiring here in a second. Nice bait there. They're able to catch the stun onto Shanks, still dropping low there. Force staff back, keeping him alive, but the damage is starting to be dealt onto these barracks, and now they've traded on out the Shadow Fiend. He's in the middle of everything. There's the Stormhammer BKB, really good reaction times there by Li Hongkai, and he's going to continue to hit away. When the BKB runs out, what's going to end up happening? They jump forward again on the Viper, salved up to keep him alive. Nice Walrus Punch. He's in a little bit of trouble now. Snowball's going to keep him alive. Doesn't end up getting enough damage out. Look at all of this damage on top of Crash Bandicoot. Ravage has already been committed, and nobody is dead at this point. Nando does end up going down in the end. Ponyo is still alive in the middle of everything. They don't want to focus him. He has the Aegis. Meanwhile, the Slardar getting chased on down, tracked on up. The damage is there, and the Urn Charge also going to be committed. Snowball forward. He's trying to run out of there. They do end up getting one more right click on him, slowing him down. But now Gyrocopter is alone. Do they have enough to burst him? They don't have a mechanism up for another 40 seconds. I think they need to back out at this point. Nice crush, going to be committed another Force Staff, but he ends up going down to the Frost Blast. Now we have another Shuriken Toss on top of this Gyro. He is relatively low, only 700 HP. They have another Snowball, going to be committed. Gyrocopter is not quite there. Cold Embrace, well played, but they think that they overstayed their welcome again, and it's going to be a full man team wipe if they don't end up getting the barracks. It's all for nothing. They're going to have to wait for the call down, but there's going to be the Walrus Punch, the follow-up, the right click, and Execration end up doing it.
God.
What is this?
And look at how much gold went in the pockets of Execration. It is so disgusting, the amount of gold that they got. And Kingdom didn't even get the objective. And now this is going to actually start regenning. Oh my gosh. If I was Kingdom, I'd be hitting my head on the wall right now, thinking, what in the world were we thinking?
I mean, this is the way this game has gone. It's 53 kills at 31 minutes, and it doesn't look to slow down anytime soon. You take a look at the net worth graph. Experience is pretty close at this point. I think it needs a second to catch back up. But the big things is you're also starting to see objectives being taken by the sides of Execration. They have taken out the tier 2 tower in the mid lane, so if they need to just push down mid after the buybacks have been committed, there's certainly a possibility for them to take the game win. So, I don't know, I'm really concerned about this. It was such a freaking huge throw.
Would you call it a throw?
Well, throw in terms of like giving them the possibility to get back into the game. It's obviously not like a real, throw, but
yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, definitely. It was a lot of gold going back their direction.
I think it was just Kingdom thinking that the racks would have been a little bit easier to take than it actually was. Oh my goodness, it was a complete slugfest there, and I think for Execration, now you look at their draft. I think the biggest thing that happened in the fights is that up top, Yemikan Parku is going to go down, unfortunately, and they even have to pop a Lotus Orb to make sure that there is nothing that's going to go in the way of Nando. This is actually a really big item pickup on the Tusk, because now that you have the Lotus Orb, they cannot afford to Winter's Curse the Sven, because that means that Fruit to Winter's Curse himself.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of which, I mean, Corrupt Doctor sent me another stat here that it has a 68% win rate when you end up picking it up. And it's usually picked up by the 40-minute mark. So this one, a very early Lotus Orb. He also has the Blink Decker. This is a pretty farmed Tusk. He's the second highest in terms of net worth, even above the Viper. And this utility, the fact that he's gotten so much utility out of this hero, he's caught several snowballs, was able to save it. He was instrumental in being able to defend this push down here. I think I saw like 4 or 5 walrus punches coming out onto BKB targets, and he was the one that started off the whole initiation by blinking forward onto the Shadow Fiend. He's just been able to do such a great job in this game, and at least at this point, he's probably my MVP.
Oh man, this game. This game is honestly going to go in in any team's direction, because we're seeing either team taking fights. It doesn't matter who it is just left and right, back and forward, up and down. Does Execration have a chance to come back into this game, do you think? Right now, they're looking a little bit weak, but later on, what do you think of their chances?
It's such a tough call to make, because I think that probably once you end up getting the MKB on Gyrocopter, you're all of a sudden in a position where the Solar Crest is going to matter that much less that you have on top of the Lich, and so the damage is just going to be there to be able to deal with it. And this is going to be probably the defining moment. If they're able to hold here without losing too much on their barracks, I think that they can probably win this game, but it's going to all come down to this. The shards end up getting committed. There's a nice crush. Ravage coming out. They have a second one that's going to be there as well. Shanks is dropping pretty low, but that's a lot of their team fight spells. BKB popped. He's still staying alive. The mechanism kept him there. He's going to be able to survive through it, but I don't know if they're going to be able to get back in time. Meanwhile, up in the front lines, Nando is starting to get hit on down by everybody else. He already popped the God Strength, turning back around. He's hitting onto Crash Bandicoot and starting to drop quickly. Shanks TP's back on into the middle of the fight. Really well played by them so far. The Lich already did have to buy back, and I think that now the Gyrocopter is going to go down, and that is exactly what they needed. They did end up losing the barracks, but it looks like they're going to be able to continue to chase here. Tusk is still doing everything that he needs to. 3 heroes dead, and Execration is starting to do it. Really well played by them.
So Execration, they get a very nice team fight, but Kingdom finally got the objective. They finally got the melee racks, which is what they were asking for. Is it really worth losing all those heroes for a single rack? So typically you would say yes, it is worth it, but you look at what Execration has. A Sven can actually deal with these creeps in the bottom lane quite well, so it's not going to be a hindrance to Execration by any means.
Yeah, definitely. And also, a lot of the other heroes are starting to be able to deal with it more effectively. Lich is level 18. His Frost Blasts and his right clicks are starting to be very significant. 100 damage onto a creep means that he's going to be able to take these out fairly quickly, and you don't necessarily have to commit your Sven down here anymore to push out creep waves. Also, your Tusk obviously can take them out really swiftly now that he's been able to pick up a Shiva's Guard. So well done. Shadow Fiend has a Scotty, which is something that they're going to need to deal with. That's definitely a problem. And Gyrocopter also getting very tanky. But I think that they have the pieces to be able to make it happen. AC up on Sven just means that he hits so hard, gives the extra armor to his teammates, as well as taking away from his opponents. And he's actually right about even in net worth with them. I think the next big thing for him after he ends up finishing off, I almost would rather see him pick up an MKB over getting... maybe even trading on out the Mask of Madness. It's such a tough combo, though, because he needs to be able to hit this Gyrocopter in the fights.
I think he should actually finish up the Daedalus first, because he needs those big crits. That's the major perk with Sven. You normally pick him because you want those big crits. And Lee Honky, I'm not too sure what Lumic was expecting to happen with the Chain Frost. Maybe expecting it was going to bounce to Lee Honky, but they get the kill onto him regardless. And now Nando, BKB has been deployed. Now Yomu Kompaku wants to come in. They have a crush available, trying to wait for the wait for the Blink Dagger. They feel like kill off creeps. He blinks out. Ravage has been used. It connects onto the other heroes, though. Shanks as well as Lumic gets out. They will lose RR in the meantime though, but BYB comes in. They want to kill Crash Bandicoot because there is no Ravage, and even the Refresher Orb is on cooldown. They will finally get this kill. 3 heroes gone for Kingdom. All 3 don't have buyback. Do they push now?
I think they do. The other thing that happened that was so sexy that we ended up seeing there out of the Sven was he ended up moving over to the Ancient creeps and then hitting the Ancients instead. So that way it was doing cleave damage instead. So it was going through any armor that they ended up having. Also ended up hitting the Alpha Wolf creep when the Tidehunter was getting Cold Embrace, so that way he was able to burst on through it and still deal a limited amount of damage. And it looks like they're going to be in a position to take the tier 3 tower. Buyback status for everybody on the Dire, they don't have it. They're not going to be able to defend against this. They tossed on down another gyrocopter call down, but what are you going to do against this lineup? You've got the Blink Dagger up on Sven. You've just got so much potential, and it looks like instead they're going to back on out, leave the tier 3 alone for now. They can fight at this point. They're no longer afraid of this lineup, and Execration are starting to do it. Oh man, what a game.
Oh my goodness. So now that Kingdom has realized that they actually can still make mistakes and that Execration is going to still be able to somewhat take objectives, they have to play more carefully. And with this in mind, what does Kingdom do now? Are they just going to continuously wait for a Roche? Oh, if they just stay here for 2 seconds, they're going to get the Aegis. Yeah. Easy peasy.
And they take it really quickly also. So I'm going to mention real quickly another thing. A comeback like this happens in 4% of games. At 25-minute marks with a 13 to 15k net worth lead, the win rate is 96.7%, with just a little bit of rounding on in there as well. So if they're able to come back from this one, this would be one of the sort of, you know, the top, I don't know, not sure exactly how many it is, but a huge comeback. And the moment at least, they're ahead in terms of net worth. Experience also shooting way ahead. This is their moment if they wanted to potentially take it, and even though you end up losing the Aegis, they've burned through one of these before. It's a little bit more difficult now because they aren't probably going to be going through the bottom lane. I imagine that they go through mid lane, which means that the pressure is going to be felt naturally along that bottom lane. So they're going to have to sort of divide their resources between clearing out creep waves while simultaneously being able to defend the mid lane there, if that's where we do indeed see Kingdom go to.
So Aegis have been taken. And now, is this going to be a waiting game now for Kingdom?
Oh,
because
top lane.
Sort of spread out.
They sketch the Tusk. He ended up blinking in there, but they're not going to be able to build him down. The Lotus Orb has been committed now. He doesn't have another TP. Is going to be able to get Force Staff to the low ground. Still ends up hitting onto the stun, but he can actually blink out of here in a couple of seconds. Snowball forward. I think he's actually maybe going to be able to at least get a decent way out. Blinking deep. All right, we end up seeing the Slardar find him, I think. What? Can you not see him? Oh, he's behind the tree.
The tree. The courier will spot it. He can kill the courier. No. Okay, never mind. He wants to kill Fruits instead. He's going to go into the low ground. BYB should be dead here.
But space really created. Tanky. They see the gyrocopter at the Ancients. He's not doing anything. The rest of his team isn't there. If they're able to pick off the gyrocopter while they're chasing around this Tusk, who looks to almost be getting away from this, they ended up getting the snowball on top of him, but no, they're not able to kill the gyrocopter, unfortunately. That would have been the play. Oh, man.
It would have been the distraction.
Yeah.
It would be a movie and all on its own, but oh my goodness. So this game is going all over the place. It is not a cookie cutter game that we typically see in, would you say, higher end games of Dota?
Sven just ended up taking out the Winter Wyvern as she TP'd on in. Yeah, I would say so. It's definitely a bit of a weird one. They end up getting the amplified damage on top of him. Crush following it up. Oh, Sven might end up going down here. The rest of his team is here in the same time. They do end up using the Force Staff on him. There's the Chain Frost, going to be committed for this one, but he does end up going down, and now they just end up TPing out of here. Ravage committed for that one. Uh-oh. Don't worry, nobody saw.
Just us. The thousands of viewers, but they're going to get a kill as well under the Bounty Hunter. So Execration, they have 3 heroes gone. 2 of them have buyback. Kingdom, they've just lost a Winter Wyvern. It is so minor that, do they go for the mid push? It seems like they do.
They're certainly in a position where they can if they wanted to, and I mean, the buyback on the Sven is the key one, and also being able to have the Tusk there. Those are the playmakers in this game and the top of the net worth for their team. So I think that they can go for it, but if they see buybacks, they can't stick around. I really don't think that they want to stick around for this. The Glyph has been committed. This, I feel like, might be a mistake. Tusk is going to be here in a second. Oh, God, I don't know about this, because now also you can chase at this point. Ravage is down. They do have one of the Refresher already popped, so Ravage is actually back on up, and they're going to jump in on top of the Slardar, able to Force Staff him away. Calldown has been committed. They're going to end up tossing out the Requiem of Souls, but no, it doesn't end up going out there. Gyrocopter's in the middle of all of them. They do use the Ravage Nando. If he goes down now, this is going to be the buyback for him, but they're keeping him alive a little bit longer. He finally does go. That's a dieback on their very, very precious Sven, and I think that this could potentially be the moment that they're waiting for. Nice man to dodge away as Viper doesn't end up getting taken out. BYB ends up getting the Winter's Curse committed onto him. He has buyback if they're going to need it, but I think they have to sack this Rax. I don't think that they really want to fight into this now without the Sven. I don't know if they have enough damage.
I think without the Sven, I don't think they have enough in them to really defend these. The Raxes are definitely going to go down. Would Kingdom commit into pushing up onto that top lane. I don't think so. They're just going to take that one set of that one Rax and they leave. They don't take the melee Rax. They took the ranged one, but don't think they wanted to overstay their welcome unless they're going to pull off this sort of a play where you back up, you smoke, and you make Execration feel safe.
Oh,
and
no.
I think this is a disaster.
All right. Tusk does have blink up, so he just needs to get out of there. Thankfully, he makes his way out before they end up catching him. But Gyrocopter now is actually in the middle of everybody. Need to Manta dodge away. Oh, they end up catching him. A nice Force Staff, keeping him alive a little bit longer, but he ends up going down. Shiva's guard has now been committed. They end up tossing out the shards. I think that at this point, it's almost close to GG. They haven't lost their last barracks. They do end up losing both of the other 2 lanes. Teams have come back from bigger than this before, but it's definitely a big ask. And thinking like they're going to end up going here to the top lane. They're not going to have the Viper for the next part of this fight. Maybe if you end up getting some really clutch crits on the Sven, you're going to be able to make it happen, but it's definitely a lot to ask.
I think it's too much at this point. I don't know if the Sven's going to be enough in himself to actually come back in this game. If they had maybe a Magnus with an RP into the Sven combo, I think it would have been enough. But here we go. They're going to try and delay this for as long as possible. And Sven comes in. Nando, can he actually finish him off? Never mind. The Winter Wyvern is going to be there to crash the party. And Nando, as quickly as he came back, he just goes straight down. And all of a sudden, Yuriko Parky being chased up by the bounty, but looks like they're not going to commit. He will just continuously go for amplify damages here in Snowball. Mega creeps the kingdom. This is the end for Execration. There is really no way that they're going to be able to come back into this game. Should be a GG call right now.
Well, that's going to push us to a Game 3. Thank you all very much for watching. It was an absolute pleasure casting for you guys. A really good game. We're going to head out of here as quickly as possible because we do need to get into the next lobby. So thank you guys again. We'll see you in a second at Lyrical Dota, at Danny Lee Cast, as well as at Corrupt Drop Bear for the stats. Any final things before we end up moving on?
I think we should just move on.
All right.
Really quickly.
We'll just move on. See you guys in a second.